of 2015, I ran across a few flat Earth videos again, and while looking into the fake moon photos circulating around, I saw that people were claiming that the images from Earth from space were fake as well. Pretty soon the flat Earth subject became viral online, and after looking at the Apollo missions one night and coming to the conclusion that they were nothing more than a huge con game, it jarred my memory about something. And for a very specific reason, I decided to look deeply into the flat Earth without just dismissing it blindly as so many do. Why did I look into it this time? Well, I do pray for knowledge and wisdom and discernment, but maybe the recent Apollo footage I watched helped. However, I live near a very large lake, Lake Ontario, and I happen to remember going to the beach as a kid and looking across the lake and seeing New York State coast off in the distance. I never ever thought anything about it ever, except I remember it being there when I went to the beach. Now, I've been to that beach 100 times over the years. And once this topic gained more prominence in early 2015, the first video I saw explained the curvature of the Earth and what it's supposed to be in inches per mile. And it resonated with me because I remember that I could see clear across the lake to the other coast, something that broke all the sphere Earth rules. So with NASA fakery on my mind and the memory of seeing this coastline that supposedly was too far below the horizon for me to be able to see it due to the curvature of the Earth, I re-examined the flat Earth theory. And as unbelievable as it seemed, it started to make a lot of sense, especially since I did distinctly remember being able to see that far coast basically anytime I was at my local beach. And as I've said, I've been there hundreds of times over the years. But even so, I went back to the beach recently and stood at the shore. I looked south and guess what? I could see the New York State coastline just like I remember. Now I googled the distance and it was approximately 36 miles. I learned what the curvature of the Earth is supposed to be exactly at that distance, and according to the people that believe in the sphere, I found out that the coast should have been buried below my ability to see it by almost 900 feet. That part of the New York State coast had a top elevation of less than 300 feet. So that left at least a huge 600-foot discrepancy, and even more because I could see some of the height of the far shore. Was something really wrong with the reality that they've been selling us ever since we were born? Well, I ended up becoming a little fixated on proving or disproving the concept. And at first I truly thought disproving the flat Earth would be rather easy. I thought there had to be a reasonable explanation why I could see so far beyond the so-called curved barrier. I learned about light refraction and superior mirages. I learned about perspective and horizons. I learned about how our eyes work. I viewed dozens of similar experiences on YouTube. I listened to experts and people who thought they had logical but spherical explanations. In fact, I tried for a few months to debunk the concept and just couldn't. The more I looked into it, the more sense it made, and the less likely that the sphere model we've been spoon-fed since birth was a reality. It's just flat out wrong. And as more people shared their experiences and proofs online, it only added to my growing, pretty much unwavering belief that the world is not what we've been told. And learning about how our eyes work and how perspective work helps a lot with understanding sunrises and sunsets and ships disappearing hull first at sea and other supposed sphere Earth proofs. I can't say for certain what shape the Earth is or how big it is, or if there's an Antarctic ring or a barrier beyond it, or if it's an infinite plane. Maybe everything we theorize is not complete. There are so many possibilities that it blows the mind, and the flat Earth has no real complete standard model because it's all based on us finding out things for ourselves. We agree on the facts and certain basics, but the rest is only hypothetical even if it seemingly makes sense. And as the evidence mounts for both the flat Earth and against the sphere, I wanted to create a special place where folks can learn and share what they've learned with other supporters. Differences of opinion are certainly going to come forth and should be expressed openly. But remember that the goal of my videos and their corresponding threads is to provide the opportunity to use each of us to learn and grow in any area that any of us has a problem in. If there is a thing you can't understand, then ask. Someone will have an opinion and we can go from there. If you have a point to make against what is considered an accepted flat Earth fact, please provide any relevant links or supporting proofs or videos. I am currently under the impression that the entire space program, even low Earth orbit, and all that is there, is really just a sleight-of-hand trick by a group of illusionists that have swindled the public, the governments of the world, the media, and us into believing a lie. Everybody, a small group of corporations and cabals have almost complete control over the entire financial, educational, high-level governmental and media systems, leaving it up to real armchair scientists and normal people that can critically think and recreate experiments themselves to independently prove or disprove any accepted line of thought about our reality. Look, I ain't the smartest man on the flat Earth, but I ain't no dummy. I'm educated, and I never ever questioned or ever thought of an alternative to a sphere Earth until this year. It never entered my mind to question this part of our reality at all, ever. But now I question everything. I'm a Christian, and I think I see the big picture. Thanks for watching my video. If you'd like to see more proof against the heliocentric model and proof against the sphere, then make sure to subscribe to my channel. And if there's anything you disagree with, make sure you leave a note below explaining exactly why. Remember folks, follow the golden rule. God loves you. We'll talk soon.
Where are we now? How do you know? And no one, and all these people, you know, it's the most hotly debated, the most polarizing subject I've ever seen, because people get angry just like I did. I mean, I was banging my head on the keyboard last summer, you know, saying they can't be true. Please let it be a globe. Please let it be a globe. Because if it isn't a globe, then we all got suckered. We all fell for the greatest con of all time. And but the summary, I'll give you the real summary is that what I'm saying is that the governments of the United States and Russia figured out in 1956 the actual shape of the globe, because you couldn't prove it. You can't prove it. You can be 99% sure mathematically, but you can't prove it until you send something up high enough to take a picture of it. And once they figured out that the Earth wasn't a globe, they decided to hide it, because it was just going to be a soup sandwich if they didn't. And I actually agreed with part of their decision. I still think it was supposed to be a natural process, and now that natural process is coming to fruition, and the internet hive mind coupled with social media is starting to detect everything, and it's starting to fall apart. And that's where we are now.
Okay, well, before we have plenty of time to discuss all of this, and it's going to be great. It's going to be fascinating. But let me just ask you about your position right now.
Sure.
Is it your position that you have presented the evidence and you want it debunked, or is it your position that the Earth is flat?
My position is, it's kind of both, but my position is that the Earth is flat because the burden of proof that is on mainstream science has not been fulfilled. Which, as simple as that, it's look, the burden of proof isn't on the flat earthers. The flat earthers are going into this, you know, with nothing to lose. You know, we put out to the mainstream science community, it's like, prove to us it's a globe.
Right.
And they can't do it. In fact, the physicists are avoiding us like the plague, to the point where Neil deGrasse Tyson shut me down very, very bluntly, you know, for the Art Bell show. The reason I did the debate with Stanton Friedman just a couple days ago was because Neil deGrasse Tyson's team, his producer, just said, yeah, that's not going to happen.
Well, he's a doofus, so yeah.
He is, but he wasn't. But he can't. There's a lot of, you know, questions, you know, we'll get into later. There's questions that no physicist can answer because they're trap questions, and they didn't even realize they were there.
Right.
So.
Well, yeah, that's a key word there, trap question too, as well. I mean, and you don't want to. What you don't want to do is you don't want to pin somebody into a corner and then slap them around and when on questions that they can't answer, because that defeats the purpose. But that being said, when you said, okay, there's, we've been convinced because of globes, and then the second point is it's what we've been told, and there's no way to prove it, right?
Yeah.
I get that, those two things, but you left out a third thing.
What?
Eyeballs.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
There's that.
What we see.
Yeah.
Okay, you have what we've been told. I get that. And then we have the globes in every classroom, and I get that too. I do, because I've seen the globes.
Sure.
But the third thing is eyeballs.
Yep.
And so you're trying to ask people to
take a picture.
No, that's not what I'm saying. I'm saying that you're asking people to change what they see.
Got it.
So, and that's a difficult thing to convince people of. But and we'll get to that after the break. But the last thing as we set everything up here is this: how has this taken hold? What I mean, it's like it's your, like you said, it's just so ridiculous. But yet, it is like a snowball rolling downhill right now.
Yeah.
How has this happened?
Oh, do I have time to answer that before the break?
We got 5 minutes.
Oh, okay. Yeah, you're absolutely right. For people that don't understand what we're talking about here, if you did a search on YouTube back in February and you just typed in flat earth with no filters on it, you may have gotten 40,000, 50,000 hits. You type that same phrase, flat earth, no quotes, just type it into YouTube now. I think as of today, it's at like 2.2 million. And you don't get that sort of resonance without, if it's bunk, if it's BS, you don't get that sort of expansion.
Yeah, it's insanity. The number is huge.
It's what I was trying to tell people. The analogy is like it's like a big old werewolf that just keeps getting bigger, running down the countryside, and everybody thinks they've got a silver bullet that can stop it. But then they realize, they look in their gun and they're going, "Oh crap, there's no silver bullets in here." And it just, the werewolf just keeps hacking up people on the way down, and keeps converting more people on the way down. The reason why it's gotten as big as it has, two reasons. One is because no one is coming forward from the other side to address it. Again, no silver bullets, meaning, and we'll go into, I've had professionals, both in the private sector and the military, who have come out and said, look, every instrument we use says it's flat. Nobody else has come out. I mean, the closest we got was Stanton Friedman. And he just didn't do his homework. He still believes, because some of his friends are astronauts, he's going to believe everything they say. The other thing was, it just, for some reason, it just seems to ring true with a lot of people, especially women. Women don't exactly fit into the conspiracy world that much. I mean, yeah, there's some, but the demographics are skewed heavily male. I get almost as many emails and phone calls from women as I do men. Women's intuition. They're saying there's something about this thing that just gets you. It just grabs you, because when you're looking at it and you're breaking it down, there's just way too many unanswered questions that the flat Earth side proposes that the mainstream science side doesn't address. And unfortunately, really one of the only weapons that the mainstream science side has is math. And you're going to lose a lot of audience if you're going to try to convince them with trigonometry. They're going to say, well, the radius, circumference, you're going to measure this and that. It's not going to help you, because all the stuff we're throwing out there is visual. It's easy to understand. The Flat Earth Clues, I'm going to take credit for part of it, and that was, I broke it down. The Flat Earth has been around for a while. It's not a new conspiracy. I thought it was staticky, though. I thought that the message that was out there, because there was only a few guys doing it, I thought it was a little staticky. So I just turned the dial just a little bit, and it got clear, and everyone was saying, what is this music? I've never heard of such a, and people were treating it like it's a brand new thing, and it is not. But one of the big things is it's so physically huge. It is such a big conspiracy. It encompasses everything else, and you'll have to readdress every other conspiracy you've ever thought of. It's the mother of all conspiracies that just everything fits inside it. So, and if it is true, it's a Twilight Zone episode, waiting to happen. If it is true, then of course it breaks down everything else, because then it's like, okay, if they lied about this, what else did they lie about? Because this makes all the other lies more credible, because it's so amazingly big. At the same time, people say, no, it's too big. You can never hide the world. You can't hide the whole world. I said, well, actually, it's surprisingly easy if most of the work is done for you before you get there. It's not like it's not like human beings hid the world. We just kept the lie going. The world was hidden by a force bigger than us, and some people want to call it divine, some people want to call it something else, but we'll get into that later.
Well, everybody loves to say what if, and everybody loves a good conspiracy, and the more complicated it gets, where it's tougher and tougher to prove, then you've got something, and everybody loves a good mystery, man. I mean, that's what we do. That's what makes the world go round, Mark. So
I see what you did there.
All right, now when we come back, we're gonna start this conversation off on a few different questions, and also I want the audience to go and do something and prep for the show for a little bit. I want everybody to go to Google Earth and go to search Fort Amador, Panama, because that's where I lived for a number of years down in Central America. And I'm going to ask Mark to do the same thing, and we're going to discuss what I used to see down there as a young man. And I think that is pretty interesting. So anyway, we'll do that in a little bit. When we come back, we got to talk about gravity, what's on the other side, what's on the flip side of the flat Earth. We're going to talk about that. And also, everybody in the world, all those professionals out there, have to be involved in some level or another with this conspiracy and lie. And we'll talk about that too as well. This is Fade to Black tonight. Mark Sargent, it is a full flat Earth evening. More with Mark when we come back after this short break. Everybody stay right there. All right. Welcome back. Merry Christmas, everybody. Tonight, very special guest Mark Sargent is right here. We're discussing the flat Earth and this phenomena. It has really, really taken off. Tomorrow night, Ben Moss and Tony Angiola are going to be here from Hangar 1 presenting new evidence on the Socorro, New Mexico UFO incident. But tonight, it's all about Mark Sargent. Now, Mark, I don't even know where to start, so I'm just going to pick something and then let's just run with it.
Sure.
But the first question probably should be gravity. Yeah. And gravity still, is not explained. We don't know a whole lot about it. Ask any physicist; they're going to give you a different answer. Yeah. And I understand why we can't see it. We don't understand it. But we know that. Well, hold on a minute. I know that something is making me stick to the ground. Yeah. Right? Okay. Yeah. So let's start there. I know that there's this electromagnetism, and there's that side of it. I don't understand how that would really work because I can't get a magnet to stick to my skin. Right? I could be wrong. Maybe they do. But...
No, you can't right now.
Okay, so how explain that part of it? Help me understand.
Sure. And gravity, and not to steal too much from the Matrix, because in the Matrix movies, they say, when they say, something, love is just a word. Gravity is just a word. It's just something we latch on to. Yeah, if you drop your pen and it falls to the floor, well, something's either pulling it down or it's pushing it down, and we call it gravity. And I actually believe, if it is, I used to believe in the spherical model. I completely understood that, and that is if you have a sphere sticking in the middle of the vacuum of space, the density of the sphere has its own gravitational pull, and things on the surface will try to pull down, towards the center of this sphere. However, on the flat model, it actually doesn't change too much because like you were saying, mainstream science really doesn't do that well a job at explaining gravity. It's very confusing to a lot of them. And in a flat model, I treat it like this. If we are in an enclosed system, a big giant Truman Show, thousands of miles wide, then gravity is pretty much what you say it is. And by that, I do mean sort of like a molecular magnet. So, because we do this in simulations now. We've been doing it we were talking about the gaming world, and I know people give me crap. It's like, oh, he's going to mention the gaming stuff again. But in the gaming world, that's exactly what we do, because we have to define gravity. And really, we treat it like a molecular magnet, which is, okay, we all know that what magnetism is now. You take, a piece of metal that attracts other pieces of metal, and you do metal on metal. But if you have a molecular magnet, you can pull everything, including your skin, including all organics, including water. You name it, you can pull it. You just create a molecular magnet underneath the surface and set it to whatever you want. If you want a guy to weigh 100 pounds, if you want him to weigh 300 pounds, you just set everything appropriately. And that's how it works. And the reason why this model seems to be kind of working better with the flat side than it is the globe. The big reason that people are, again, trying to get their heads around, no play on words there, is the water problem. And that is water on a sphere. Now, I do believe that water can stick on a sphere in the emptiness of space, but only if the sphere isn't moving. Unfortunately, if you believe in the globe model, we're spinning at 1,000 miles an hour. And people are saying, well, the water's, sticking, on all the oceans because of gravity. I go, yeah, that's fine. But the merry-go-round principle has to be taken into effect. And that is, on the outside of a merry-go-round, you're trying to be thrown off. We've all been there in the playground when we were younger. But if you're in the center of the merry-go-round, it's sunny skies. Everything's beautiful. It's turning in a circle. Nothing's pulling you anywhere. So the question is, why are there oceans near the North and South Pole if we're spinning at 1,000 miles an hour? Because water moves very, very easily. I'm not saying all the oceans are going to condense down at the equator like Saturn's rings, but it is going to kind of bunch up, and you're going to have bald spots on the North and South Poles. So why isn't that happening? Scientists avoid that question like the plague. And they're saying, well, no, it's gravity. I'm going, really? Because gravity is going to counteract centrifugal force entirely? Not buying it. Not buying it.
Well, okay. Let me back up, though. Back to the gravity, what's keeping me here.
Yes.
We can discuss the oceans in a second.
Okay, sure.
Because I have a whole idea with that too as well. I'm just trying to keep myself from going insane. Okay.
Sure.
That's the thing. Because if all of this is true, then we are in the Matrix and everything is really friggin' screwed up and my life changes. So I'm trying to keep from doing that right now.
Okay.
So anyway, let's back up. What is keeping us stuck to the flat Earth?
If it's a flat model, then in my humble opinion, I think is of some form of molecular magnetism. Now, you could say that it's still density. In which, because some people say, well, don't go into it too technical. Maybe it's just that we're living on a much, much bigger planet or a big square box or whatever it is, and that there's this huge mass below us, and the mass is actually just creating a physical gravity, like it would with a sphere. And the only reason we don't see a curve is because it's so large that there is no curvature. We're on a much, much bigger surface, which may have a curve or may be square or triangle or whatever, but our part that we're on is perfectly flat. So it could be mass, it could be density, sure. But if it was me, if I was the creator, I'm just saying I'd make it adjustable, and I would use some sort of molecular magnetism. It wouldn't be that difficult. I mean, the unified field theory, we all know it's very, very possible. So why not convert that into some sort of gravity machine? I'll throw one more out at you, and that is I'll give you an example. In our limited civilization, because back in the 90s when we were doing the early games, we were designing gravity wells. Right. Granted, it was only for 2D and limited 3D things, within a machine. But we were designing gravity wells because people are saying, the Coriolis effect and water spinning one way or the other way. And we were doing torque, clockwise or counterclockwise torque on a gravity well.
Well, you would have to in gaming for realism.
Exactly.
Yeah, I get that. But it is also ones and zeros. So you could.
It is also ones and zeros. Yes.
Right. Now, I don't want to get ahead of ourselves, but I just want to address this really quick. If we're flat and we're here and there's a dome above us and that's what's going on, the question is obviously what's on the bottom side, and is there gravity there, or is there nothing there?
That is a very interesting question. I'm really glad you asked that, because and I, again, when I was trying to troubleshoot this thing, I had to look at every aspect of it, because I knew questions like this were going to come up. People are going to say, well, what's on the other side? And the problem is that we don't know. And by that, I don't mean that we don't know kind of like a haphazard we don't know. I mean that we've only dug the deepest hole human beings have ever dug is 8 miles, which is 12 kilometers if you're Canadian. 8 miles is not very far. And yet, when you look at the mainstream science books, they say, well, it's about 4,000 miles to the core of the Earth, and here are the bands. Here it's red, then orange, then yellow, then it's that white, hot, milky center. I was going, how do you know that? You only dug down 8 miles. Well, we did seismographs, and we pinged this and pinged that. I'm going, yeah, but you don't know because you only dug down 8 miles. I mean, that's like knocking on a coconut for this first time and saying, well, judging by the woodiness of the sound, we're going to define the completely interior of the coconut. You don't know jack, but every science book has that cross-section, which looks like a cross-section of a gobstopper, showing the Earth and, all 8,000 miles of it, from one end to the other. I'm going, why don't you just say you don't know? And if you look in Wikipedia, all the geologists say, oh, yeah, we're extrapolating, we're, projecting based on this, based on that. But that's their nice way of saying we have no freaking idea what's below us. But people don't like to see a globe with a big question mark in the center of the graphic. They don't like to see that. So science says, well, that's what we think it is. That's what it is. And you give that a couple generations, but it's now common knowledge. That's what it is.
Sure. But to be fair, you have the same questions, even if it's flat Earth.
You're absolutely right. But remember, the burden of proof isn't on us. I'm saying to be fair, for me, and I talked about this in one of the clues, and I have got some crap for it. But I said, look, everything in a flat model, from what I'm looking at, has to be artificial, especially if there's a firmament, especially if there's a dome. And by that, I mean everything from the jet stream, which is really just a giant air conditioning system, the underwater conveyor system, which might as well be jets in a hot tub. And people are saying, well, volcanoes and the magma system, that has to be real. That has to be organic. I said, really? You're going to leave something as volatile as that to just be random? Think of if when you were in science class, the spider that was kept in the terrarium. You know, you had the light bulb, you had a little thing of water, you had some sand. You know, you may have had a mesh screen and all that. Nothing was organic in that spider's world. Now, that spider had no idea what was going on. He has no concept of how the light bulb works and how the water got there and how the air's getting in there. Anything that's going on, why the lights turn off sometimes and why they come back on. No concept. But the point is, nothing is random. Nothing is organic. So when I say, look, even the magma systems are possible, you know, a magma system that, you know, that funnels magma to the volcanoes, of course, that's got to be artificial. The big reason is you don't want to have a chance of, like, you know, everyone knows that supervolcanoes, you know, can cause a whole lot of damage. One supervolcano, that's it. Our civilization's done. You know, you get a sort of nuclear winter scenario that it would wreck everything. So for me, below this, I think there's a magma system, and I think there is a system of mechanics involved that deal with the volcanoes.
And so, yeah, like I said, it's kind of equal on both sides. We've only gone down so far. That's it. Yeah. The questions are there whether it's flat or whether it's round, hollow. It doesn't matter. We don't know. Yeah. Now. I want everybody to jump to this Panama map. I don't know if you pulled it up yet.
I did. I'm looking at pictures of it right now.
Okay, cool. Is even if, let's say it's flat. Let's go. Today I'm sold. I'm buying flat Earth groceries now. Okay, I'm okay. Sold. Let's say, but why does it even matter? I still have to work. I still have to send my kids to school. Still got to pay taxes. I still drive the same car with gas in it. Nothing changes. So why would it even matter?
That's an excellent point. 1 out of 15 or 1 out of 20 emails I get ask that very question. It's like, who cares, right? I still got to go to work in the morning, and work sucks. You know, that's the argument. It's like, well, yeah, you may have to go to your sucky job tomorrow, but everything will change, even if you don't want it to. Even if it's like, you know, I'm just going to go into my factory and it's never going to change. It's like, really? Because a lot of other things will change around the world. And here's the big thing of why. And I did a clue on it called status quo, which was human beings do not take to being confined well. They obsess about it. It's not like a wildlife preserve where you put a buffalo in it and, you know, it's 1,000 acres or whatever, and they just don't care if they see a fence. If human beings see a fence, all they're going to care about from now until the end of our civilization is everything regarding that fence. Take your big five religions. We'll just do the religions right off the bat. The big five: Hinduism, Buddhism, Judaism, Islam, and Christianity make up about 80% of the world's population. All of them have been looking for proof of intelligent design since their inception.
That's right.
Imagine if they found evidence of that. Evidence of intelligent design. Now, I'm not saying it's the hand of God out there, but they certainly are going to. Absolutely. Because the Genesis 1:6 or 1:7, depending on where you're looking, it talks about the firmament, the barrier that separates the waters above and the waters below. Every religion's got their own version of this. If this gets confirmed in any sort of way, religion gets a huge shot of steroids, and science starts backpedaling in a big, big hurry. Again, the immediate effects, aside from NASA being closed and the biggest class action lawsuit of all time, every astrophysics department, every astronomy department in every university in the world closes. Your major sciences, the ones that survive, geology, hydrology, archaeology, biology, take your pick. They've got to retool to the new model. Textbooks have to get thrown out or revised, and there's so much chaos. On top of that...
Well, hold on. That you bring up an excellent point, though. Every university, every scientist, every textbook, everybody is in on it. And so how can that secret have been kept? I mean, I'm talking about people have been in on it.
No. In fact, that's the best part of the trick. The best part of the trick is nobody was in on it because it was so old that all the textbooks were written before it was discovered. And by that, when you go into the clues, and I just do a quick backtrack, I believe fully, and again, you can watch the clues. There's other people who have talked about it. I didn't invent the whole concept. I just made it really clear, which was that I believe the higher powers, the authority, and that by that I mean the super rich, the royals, and the bigger world governments, were looking for this thing. But if you don't have the technology to look for it, meaning basically until the internal combustion engine happened, you got wooden ships, steam trains. You can do nothing, especially down in Antarctica. So you send your best guy down there from 1928 to 1956. That's Admiral Byrd in the United States, the youngest admiral of all time. He's flying around the ice in his own planes, and the Russians are helping from 1928 to 1956, looking for this thing, looking for evidence of this, because somebody had the old maps. This is refound, rediscovered artifacts that we're talking about here. And in 1954, and again, the clips, we're so lucky to get them, that are on YouTube right now, of Admiral Byrd going on television in 1954 on a CBS affiliate. And he goes on the Longines chronoscope, and he basically lays it out and says, look, apparently Antarctica is made out of money, and we should all just make money now there for the next 100, 200 years. And then, of course, Murphy's Law kicks in, and he finds something. And whatever they find scared everybody. And remember, all the big countries were down there still trying to rebuild from World War II. You had Soviet Union, you had Great Britain, Australia, New Zealand, Argentina, Chile. Take your pick. And they all left unilaterally after Operation Deep Freeze in 1956. And they started making the treaty possible, which is now the Antarctic Treaty. Basically, and again, this was one of those tipping points. It was not only a tipping point for me, but for a lot of other people, because it just went against everything we know, because money and greed and power rule the world. And in 1959, all the governments that were down there said, you know what? No one gets to go down to Antarctica with a corporation to make money ever. What are you talking about? So if I could, started, Marklandia and created my own country and I became an economic power, they would put a piece of paper in front of me saying, oh yeah, by the way, on top of trading with the rest of the world, you have to sign this agreement. You don't get to go down to Antarctica. Really? How long? Ever. It's not even up for debate. No treaty's ever been in place this long unilaterally over that many nations. It's not even up for debate until 2041. And basically what it says is no corporation, no matter how much money is involved, you really think an oil company with as much lobbying power as they have, they can get in a national park. They could start fracking in your backyard next week if they wanted to.
That's right.
And they not only don't have the power to go down there, they don't even have the power to petition. You'd think you'd go to the New York Times and just start running stories saying why it's great for Exxon to go to Antarctica. They aren't even allowed to do that.
Yeah, I get that. I totally do. But the intention of it was it was the last untouched, untarnished thing on this planet that we've managed.
Sure.
Well, hold on. Let me just say we've managed to screw up everything, right? Yeah. So it was the last little spot that we haven't screwed up yet. So let's try to keep it that way. And do research and figure things out instead of now. And the flip side of it is just it's just too treacherous and too expensive. Look, I know Admiral Byrd talked about mountains of coal down there, that we would have coal for forever. Sure. But you got to get to it, and it was right at the South Pole too, as well. That mountain that he was referring to.
Oh, sure.
And to get to it, and to get boats, go through the ice, and everything else, and the expense of dragging it and mining it and bringing it back, it was just too expensive to do. So,
and I would agree with you, back in the 50s when gas was less than 30 cents a gallon. But as gas got more and more expensive, the crude oil, once that got more and more expensive, full well there was going to be mission creep there, especially from other nations. It wasn't just America that got shut out, remember. It was everybody.
Everybody, right.
It wasn't in science. Science as much pull as they have, and now, of course, there's a secondary and a third treaty, that's environmental. And people are saying, well, it's an environmental issue. And I'm going, okay, first off, there is no indigenous plant life. There's no indigenous animal life. There's just ice and snow. There's no ancient ruins that we know of, anything like that. And two, Greenpeace wasn't even formed until 1971. And that's just two guys and some tie-dyes and some rafts. That's all they had. So in 1959, environmentalism wasn't even a word. It was, people, they would drill anywhere. They didn't care. It's like, they didn't even know the dangers of radiation in 1959. They were still trying to work that out, which we'll get into later. So,
yeah, right.
So the point was, I've never seen a treaty anywhere, and people are still looking, through all, distant treaties, especially between nations, especially, between Russia and America. Now there's like 52 nations that are signed on to this thing, and everybody's agreed. And again, it's kind of like the old Shakespeare saying, "He doth protest too much," and that is. But this goes the other way, and that is, it's not that they just can't go down there. They can't even talk about going down there. Who does that? Who can't spin it? What oil company exec isn't going to go, get his friend, in some newspaper, some magazine, some media giant and say, look, I need to get down there. I think there's an investment opportunity, and then they just start running articles. No, the story isn't even allowed to happen. There's only, as far as I know, there's like 5,000 people down there at any given time. They're all military. You can go down there if you want. And I must be clear here. If you, the average person that's listening, you want to go to Antarctica, yes, you can go. You can pay about $10,000 to $15,000. You can go along the peninsula, get your picture taken with some emperor penguins. Everything will be fine and great. Go on a nice little raft and get really cold. But there's an invisible line out there. Not like Area 51, where you have scary signs and people in SUVs, looking at you with binoculars. There's an invisible line out there. Plus, there's the Antarctic Defense Force, multinational Navy, state-of-the-art weapons technology. What are they protecting? Who are they possibly protecting this against? They don't want, the place just screams, go away.
Well, it does help you feed the conspiracy. It absolutely does. I mean, I'm with you on that. Let me ask you this, Mark. Yeah. If I got you a ticket, sure, and you went up on the International Space Station and cruised around, and came back down, and you saw that the Earth was round, do you change your mind?
Sure, I'd change my mind in a second. Okay. Of course, the odds of that happening are slim to none. But
that's why you're a guest on this show. You've got an open mind. I respect that.
Well, I do have an open mind. Of course. In fact, I was one of the guys that, I looked at the moon stuff, and then I looked at, I was like a lot of people, because some people say, well, I don't believe in the moon stuff, but you're not going to take away the ISS, the International Space Station, away from me. And and I thought that too. I was going, well, yeah, the ISS has got to be real, right? And then I started looking at the interior footage. Again, you want to look it up on YouTube. The best videos are called ISS Hoax.
I know. I've seen them.
The interior footage shots, not the exterior footage. The exterior shots aren't that terrible by comparison. But the interior shots are B-movie production grade stuff. And I can't figure, that's the part that's bugging me, because they're making mistakes that even a rookie director wouldn't make. And I just, like perming the hair of the women, so that not only does it not look natural in zero gravity, but it looks just damn stupid. The fact that there's no hatches between the compartments, the fact that they're walking around in khakis and socks and polo shirts with apparently no regard for anything bad that could be happening. The fact that there's gravity shifts and people just can't tend to be bumped here and there for no apparent reason. And, the idea now is that, okay, pretty much everything, if it's not on green screen, it's being shot on their simulators on the Vomit Comet. Look that up when you get a chance.
Well, I've had many shows about that, and just so you understand, I don't know if you know, but look, I'm not even sure if we went to the moon. I've had plenty of debates about that, and I question everything when it comes to that.
Oh, good. Well, we won't talk about that.
Okay, but in some respects, we're on the same page. But then I have a friend who, and I'm sure you've got friends that are pilots. I have a friend, literally fighter pilot. Right? Yeah. Okay. Naval Academy graduate, Marine fighter pilot. Okay. Yeah. The real deal guy. Sure. And he's somebody that you probably know. And when this discussion comes up with the flat Earth, he's like, come on, man. No. And it just he enjoys a good conspiracy. He likes the debate. He likes the conversation. It's great to have hours of conversation talking about this. But he's just like, come on, no. Just no. I would have been right with you, because there was a guy, when I was starting to interview, because I asked, by the time I got to Clue 10, I was asking for anybody to come. I wasn't asking for, a NASA whistleblower, although that would have been nice. But anybody to come forward in the professional sector, anyone was dealing with large measurements. And I had a flight instructor, owned his own flight instructor school out of Iowa. And he came forward and said,
He looked at, he took him a while. He did some research first, like a lot of people. Before he comes forward, he wasn't going to make a snap judgment. And he comes on record, he was not anonymous, and says, look, he goes, every instrument that I use, that, when I teach students how to fly, and all the pilot friends that I know, everyone he knows, they're basically confirming the same thing, which is everything that they fly with tells them they're flat. And then the question comes up, I go, well, how in the world do all these thousands of pilots all over the world not get this? How did they miss this? And he goes, you know what? He goes, pilots, it's such a precision profession that they're so busy doing so many things with their checklist, and they're looking at this. If they're not thinking about taking off, they're thinking about landing, and they're always looking at instruments. Always, always, always. That's the last thing on their mind. He goes, and really, even if it crossed their mind, do you think they take it seriously for a second? And which is why, I put in one of the clues, I said, because a lot of people have asked me, are all the pilots in on it? I go, no, not at all. But even if you had like a long distance flight guy, a guy that was crossing major oceans, a navigator, even if he thought the map was wrong, which is so far down on the list of possibilities, even if he got to that part where he says, you know what, this only makes sense if the map's wrong. But if the map's wrong, it's like the earth is flat. If that was the case, who is he going to tell? Who are you going to go to? If you're gainfully employed in the aircraft industry, you're going to go to your company. You're going to go to the FAA. You'll be. I wasn't kidding when I said one of the clues. I said you might as well. You would be better off telling them that a UFO was chasing you for the last 2 hours, because that's the sort of response you're going to get. You're going to be benched. You're going to have a desk job, and you're never going to see it. You're going to see a cockpit again. So, and of course, your friend, the pilot, everyone, including me, believe me, when people listen to it, it's like, look, I never thought in a million years I would be talking about flat Earth in 2015. But your first reaction, if you do not look at this with just audacity, if you don't look at this and say this is crazy for the first couple hours that you're looking at this, there's probably something wrong with you.
You know what's funny? I'm so wrapped up in this conversation, I rolled right by a hard break.
Oh, I'm sorry.
No, that's okay. That's how good it is. This is Fade to Black. Tonight, Mark Sargent. We're talking about the flat Earth. More with Mark right after this very quick break. We'll be right back. All right. Merry Christmas, everybody. Tonight, Mark Sargent is with us. It is a flat Earth evening. Excellent conversation. Very interesting. Tomorrow night, Ben Moss and Tony Angiola of Hangar One are going to be here, my good friends. We're going to be talking about new evidence in the Socorro UFO incident. But tonight it is Mark Sargent. Mark, I want to, before we run out of time here, and it's already blown past,
sure.
Let's go to this Panama map. And one of the interesting parts of the flat Earth theory is ships on the horizon. The most fascinating, and is probably because I'm not an astronaut. It's one of the things that I have a lot of experience in. I learned to sail, open seas, boats, and everything. So with that, I want everybody to, and Mark, to open up Google Maps and go to Panama, Central America. And then when you switch to the satellite view, you can zoom in, go to the south side of Panama, where Panama City is. And once you zoom up on Google Earth to the entrance of the Panama Canal, you're going to see right there, as you zoom in, you're going to see Amador light up, and then you're going to see this thing called Panama Bay. Amador is where I lived, okay? I lived right there. And as you zoom in on Amador, and you zoom in, you'll see on the north side of Amador right there, you see a golf course, right? Okay, that's where my house was. And if you zoom in enough, you can see my home where I grew up. Okay, so anyway, now, at the end of Amador, you see this long causeway, and it connects to 3 islands that are connected by a road. Okay, those are defense installations, but now it's all commercialized because we gave away the canal. But when you zoom in, you'll see this dotted line that forms on Google Earth. Do you see that dotted line, Mark?
Maybe. Oh, crap, I'm in Bing. Darn it.
Okay.
But go ahead and describe it to me.
Okay.
Sorry, I don't want to break your...
That dotted line is the route of the ferry, okay? Now, and then south of where it says Panama Bay, you go directly south, you'll see an island called Taboga. That island was 10 miles away from my home, okay? And you could see it from my house. You could see the tip of the island because it's over the horizon. But we'll get to that in a second. Now, Mark, what I want you to notice, when you're looking at, if you can see the words Panama Bay and Toboga at the same time, and you're looking at the island and you're looking at Amador, you'll see all of those little white dashes that are all over the place. You see these white lines.
Okay.
If you zoom in on any one of those white lines, you will see that those are freighters. Those are huge ships, humongo, right? And you can zoom in on, pick a ship and zoom in, and you can see that those are huge ocean-going freighters, and of which, I'm going to count here, just sitting here, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, 25, 26, 27, 28, 29, 30, 31, 32, 33, 34, 35, 36, 37, 30, let's say 50. There's 50 of these freighter ocean-going ships that are out there. Now, during the day, this is what I would do, is because I lived on this little island-like protrusion at the entrance of the Panama Canal, I could walk over to the edge of the Panama Canal and watch these ships come in and out of the canal. And you can imagine at that age, I'm 14, 15 years old, it's like the coolest thing ever to see. I mean, it's just humanity's advancement of technology to have the Panama Canal built and watching these huge ships go through there. Now, what I would do is I would look out and I wouldn't see the ships. You could see these 50 ships that are sitting out there, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 miles away from my home. I couldn't see the ships. But if I sat there long enough, and this is what I would do as a kid, I would watch the next ship pull into the canal. And what kind of ship was it? Was it a destroyer? Was it Navy? Was it a submarine? Was it a freighter? Was it tall? Was it new? Was it old? But I would do that. And I would watch it appear slowly over the horizon, and I would see the top of the ship, and I'd see more of it, and then I would guess what kind of ship it was, and then I would watch it go through the canal. What I didn't know, that over the horizon were these 50, 60, 70 ships waiting to come into the canal. And one day, I ride a ferry from where I lived, Fort Amador, out to this island, Toboga. If you zoom in on Toboga, you can see it's just a beach. It's an island. There's like 500 people that live on it. It's not that big of a deal. There's a hotel there and a nice beach. And you can see the dashed line coming in, and it says Toboga Ferry. And it would land there. So I'm on the Toboga Ferry, and I'm riding from my house over here in Amador, and I ride and as we started coming up and approaching the horizon, then I saw as we got closer that there were 50, 60, like a parking lot of freighters that I never saw from my house. Okay, and it's only 6 miles away, 7 miles away. And I was always taught as a kid sailing. My dad had a couple of sailboats, a catamaran and a regular sailboat. My neighbors had sailboats, and we sailed. And I was always told, if you're standing at sea level, the horizon's 6 miles away. And if once you're up on a sailboat like this, and now you're 6 feet higher above that, then the horizon's going to be about 12 miles away. And it works like this. And they, I was told different things that you would be able to see 12 miles away further over the horizon. So I get on this ferry and I'm riding out, and then all of these ships appeared that I couldn't see from my house. And there was another thing that, and I know this from experience. Remember what we said earlier in the interview, eyeballs. Forget about the globe. It's just my eyeballs and what I saw. And what I used to do, this island out here, Toboga, which was about 10, 12 miles away from my house, I could see the tip of Toboga. And what I used to be able to do is I could duck down and put my head on the ground, and I would goof around with my eyes, and I would watch Toboga disappear. And then I would stand up and I would see Toboga, and I used to, I guess Toboga must be about 12 miles away because it's on the horizon. And that's what I was told. And then I would get on a boat and I would sail around and see Toboga appear. And then as I sailed back home or was on the ferry Toboga would slowly disappear, and I would only see half of the island. It's a mountain-shaped island.
Yeah.
But all of those 50 freighters would disappear. And so back at my house, I knew that over the horizon was this parking lot of freighters that I couldn't see. And I was always tripping on that. I thought, wow, so that's the circumference. That's it. That's how the horizon works. And I learned something.
Yeah.
And so how do you explain that to me? Because that's my own personal experience. And when we talk about flat Earth, and I know what I used to do, it doesn't make it. It's like my brain melts because of what I saw, not what I learned, but what I saw and what I experienced.
Of course. Yeah. And this was one of the first things. In fact, it is probably one of the most common arguments that is thrown at us. The other one being people say, no, I can see the curve from a plane. So which I put forward, fine. If you do see a curve from a plane, please take a picture of it, put it on your laptop, hold a straight edge up to it. If you still see the curve, email it to me. I will gladly talk about it on air. No one's ever done it. But when it comes to the ships, because that argument, in fact, physically, it's one of the oldest arguments, because people say, well, if it's flat, it can't be flat because ships will sail off the edge. And to a lesser degree, we all know that ships are going to disappear off the horizon where you only see the top of the mast by the time it gets to a certain distance. Now, that's interesting because I actually bought into that as well. I was like, well, because I've seen videos, right, that appear to show ships going off in the distance and they shrink. But here's where it got weird, because now things have changed over the last 10 years, especially with camera technology, especially with zoom technology.
Yeah, but I want to stop right there. I'm not talking about cameras or lenses or telephoto. I'm talking about
what you can see with your own eyes.
Me on the open ocean sailing towards Toboga, and then these 50 ships, huge freighters, appeared.
Okay. Without using camera technology, I can tell you there are movies out there, but we won't. Eventually, someone's going to want to see a recorded version of what you saw. But the short version is the simple word refraction. And by that, I mean, when you're looking at it, of course, we all think we're seeing a ship sinking over the horizon in the distance. But if you if you look close enough, and again, I don't necessarily recommend people staring on a beach for hours and hours or on a boat for hours and hours without at least trying to record it, or you're going to go mad. But if you stare at it long enough, what you're going to see is something very, very interesting, and that is it starts to blur from the bottom up. By that, I mean, we've only seen this when we compare picture by pictures, and we line them up next to each other. It's not that the ship is actually disappearing over the horizon. It's as it's getting further and further away until it gets to the vanishing point, the water starts blurring the hull to the point where you actually can't. So yes, the top of the ship is the only thing that's left, but that's only because the bottom of the hull, even though the ship is still there, has just been blurred to a certain degree. And we only know this because, and I know I'm going to cheat here a little bit, if you take any camera now and zoom in after you've lost it with your eyeballs, and you said, oh, okay, the ship's gone over the horizon, that's the big tell. And that is, okay, you watch and you watch with your eyeballs, and it's gone. Right? Therefore, if it's gone over the horizon, it doesn't matter what you use. If you use a telescope, a telescopic lens, whatever, your camera phone, it doesn't matter. If that ship's gone over the horizon, you should not be able to pull it back. And you take your lens out and you zoom, or your telescope, which is, if you're not going to use electronics, and all of a sudden, hey, there's the ship again. Yeah, the bottom's distorted, but the point is you shouldn't be able to see that ship because it's gone past the horizon. So why can you still see it? So
with that, again, that's lenses and cameras, and there's all kinds of things that could be involved there. And I agree that is what you see. But I'm talking about when I'm on a boat and I'm sailing right here from my home at Amador to Toboga, those 50 freighters, these are not little toy boats.
Sure.
A parking lot like at Walmart full of freighters that goes on from, and I'm sailing, and and then boom, once I cross a certain point, I'm looking at 50 huge freighters that I don't see from my house, and I know it's because there's a curve there. I mean, how do you explain that?
Do you say it because you know there's a curve there?
I did it. That's what I did it. I did it. That's all.
If I could, again, I know, it's tough for you to take my word for it, but refraction is the answer here. And we only know this because of what we've been filming lately. Again, you can see it with your
okay. I get it, but I hear you. I understand. I've seen all of the videos, and I get that because I've seen mirages. I know what happens in long distances. I've seen it. I get that. But if you and I are sailing on a boat to Toboga and we see that, refraction doesn't come into the conversation.
Well,
it can't. It can't. It's impossible.
I beg to disagree in that case because unfortunately you're not going to be able to show the viewers without recording it some way, and recording.
But if you and I were on that boat together, we don't need to record it. You and I are going to see it together.
Sure.
Okay.
Sure. But now with what I've seen, or what I've been researching over the last 10 months, I will look at it with different eyes. I'll look at it and compare it to what I've seen on video and say, oh, yeah, there's the bottom of the hull blurring. And as it gets off, it's going to hit the vanishing point. So even though the top of the ship looks like it's going up the horizon, all it's doing is going to the vanishing point. No different than railroad tracks going off into the horizon. Yeah. It just gets smaller and smaller.
That's right. Except for what I'm talking about here, these aren't ships that are moving. They're parked.
Sure.
They're not moving. They're parked. Yeah. They're not moving. They're not driving away or sailing away. Driving.
Yeah, but you're moving.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Exactly. We're going with the curve of the Earth, and then as we come up over the top, boom, there they are.
No.
I
hear you. I know what you're saying there, but if you're going to throw that at me, I'm going to throw out.
No, I'm not throwing. I'm just saying.
No. I mean, I'm going to use for every one of those. I mean, it's good. I like it. That's actually fairly new. No one's actually said that one to me, but I'm going to use the missile instructor guy who was the guy from the United States Navy who came forward and said, look, I'm using a 2-inch beam radar and we're painting targets for the Sea Sparrow missile system at 60 miles. He goes, that's 2,000 feet below the curve. There's no way we should be able to paint a target. We're not shooting it up in the air. We're not bouncing it off the ionosphere or anything like that. We're using a straight up beam radar. Without that beam radar, the missile does not hit its target. It's not auto guiding.
Right.
And he goes, you can't hit a Mirage at 60 miles. You're not hitting a missile anything at 60 miles. And we do that repeatedly. And that's just the declassified distance he's giving me. That, and of course, he uses night vision to see ships at 30 miles. And he goes, and night vision, night vision doesn't lie. He goes, when you're looking out there, he goes, you should not be able to see a ship at 30 miles with night vision if it's a Mirage, because some people, will throw the Mirage thing out at me.
Mm-hmm.
So,
yeah, right.
But no,
right,
I like your thing. My short answer is refraction. You're moving, the ships aren't moving. It's the opposite of what some of the videos that you've seen going from the beach, which is when they go from the beach, it gets farther and farther away. In this case, you're actually coming up on it. If you recorded it and then ran it in reverse, I'm sure you'd see the same thing the videos are showing. But that's just
right. Now, okay, let's put that aside. Again, we're going to run out of time. Who built the Earth? Who built?
Wow.
Now.
It's a small question.
Yeah. Check this out. Look, I would love to have Richard Dawkins come on this show. I would slap him around like a little girl. But I didn't say that. I don't want to offend the little girls out there when I'm talking about comparing them to Richard Dawkins. Right. But I firmly believe that something happened here, and it wasn't by accident. What divine, call it God, call it the creator, call it some genius, call it E.T., it doesn't matter to me. It's too much of a miracle that we are here and we are like we are. Now, and you're right, the question is too great. Yeah. But if somebody built some kind of sapphire crystal dome over planet Earth and had some kind of divine design for us, somebody did it somewhere. Who did it?
Okay, first off, I'd like to address what you were saying earlier, and that is, it's too big to the point where even if, for example, the United States government or the United Nations happened to reveal one day on television, it said, oh, by the way, they parked themselves out by the edge of this thing with next to an alien ship, and the alien ships came out and they said, we did it. Most of the religious houses of the world would still say that it was divine intervention and intelligent design and the aliens had nothing to do with it and they were lying. That being said, it feels like who did it? Growing up in a Christian home, I've got to go with with the divine, the God aspect of it.
It's
because
fine. It's fine. Totally fine.
But that being said, did God use any special tools? Did God subcontract it out? Are there layers? Is it simple to think that after this we get to see God, or are there layers above this that we have to get through? Because there could be, let's face it, there could be an advanced civilization running this thing, or and also we're definitely not the first tenants to rent this apartment by any stretch. There's
You're right about that.
Hints of hints of ancient civilizations all over the place, which of course lends back to the first question of, who was the first civilization? Who are the first people? And if it was the first people, is it a jailbreak scenario? And then you get back to the fallen, which leads back to religion. For me, do I think it's divine? If it's not, I don't, then you're going to have to start looking into your definition of divine at that point. So yeah, that's what I think.
So, okay.
You want to ask why?
Well, I think you gave me like 5 different scenarios, though.
Okay.
All of those could apply, and
Sure.
I agree with each one of them. But I'm saying, who built it? I mean, was it an experiment? Why did they do it? And what was the purpose? Because now we're dealing with construction of a building, not necessarily a species.
Well, if it's a construction of a building, and it does feel a lot like it. I mean, the systems involved here are really, they're giant macro versions of what life imitates life and art imitates life. But think about it. The jet stream, a big circular air conditioning system, the magma system, heating system, the water pumping system for the oceans, and the subtle things, the mechanical things like adding 3% salt solution to the oceans, which prohibits exploration by like 95%, reducing the temperature out at the outer barrier to where icebergs form at 15 degrees, and then create the most hostile land mass of all time on the outer edge, reducing the atmosphere when you get to the upper edges so you can't go very high without passing out or dying. All these different things, were they constructed to when I looked at it, I tried to see, it's like, is there everything has so many layers of efficiency to it that it was perfect by design. And I'm not being sentimental and saying, well, God makes everything perfect. No, I'm saying it is an amazing design for what it is. The only flaw in it, and I don't even think it's a flaw, is that any civilization eventually is going to figure it out. Every civilization, once they reach a certain level of technology, is going to figure out the constraints, and at that point the game really changes, or the outcome changes, because then they're not acting naturally anymore. So for me, what I try to tell people is it feels a lot like an education system more than anything, because people say, well, what is it? What are the reasons? Well, it can only be one of really 3 reasons. It's either entertainment, education, or confinement. Those are like anything. Mm-hmm. And if it's entertainment, well, not that many people are having that much fun. A lot of people suffer, the Matrix thing, we define our reality through misery and suffering. So I don't think it's entertainment. Confinement, if it's confinement like a jail, why hide the bars? Why not make it a little more obvious that it's confinement? I mean, honestly, we didn't even know we were confined until, I don't know, just now. And so, but then you get to the education part, and then it kind of reminds you of school, because school is kind of confining. You're there, you're not supposed to leave. You don't want to, get caught playing hooky. Well, I actually used the word hooky. That dates me. You're there. You kind of have fun at school sometimes. Sometimes you don't. A pep assembly here, a pep assembly there. Yeah, that's kind of fun. But most of the time, you're trying to learn something. You're trying to better yourself. And that's what it kind of feels like, when we're here. I mean, yeah, a lot of people don't learn anything. They're just dumb as rocks. And they go through their lives, and it's like maybe those people aren't real to begin with. Maybe they're just background material. But a lot, but that's what it feels like. It feels like an education system, not just an experiment. I think at this point, yeah, I think every civilization goes through a process of their own unique qualities. Everyone, like the arts, I said that in one of the clues, where the arts seems to be unique. We all create our own paintings, our own music, our own sculptures. And those are, I think, are probably unique from civilization to civilization. But the rest seems to be a learning process more than anything else. And I think it was supposed to be natural. That's the big difference here. Let me close the statement with this. I think that that we were supposed to figure this out. Maybe not, not in the 1950s, maybe like in the 1970s, maybe the 1980s, through natural exploration, not that forced stuff with Admiral Byrd. And then once we figured it out, then the natural process, then things change. But unfortunately, the people that were looking for it happened to be the authority and the high elite government. And once they figured it out, they made a decision pretty quick. And I can understand where they made it. They said, yeah, we're not going to let this sort of chaos, because at that point you're going to tell people, oh yeah, by the way, we were wrong 500 years about a lot of stuff.
Right.
But you should still listen to us because we're the authority. And it's like, even though there's this giant structure we're living in, we're still top dog. You think people are going to buy that? No. People are going to be going, oh yeah, I don't think so. We don't have to do anything you say ever again. And it'd be a mess for a while. And they said, you know what, let's just hold on to this for as long as we can. And that's about 60 years.
Okay, we've got 2 minutes to a break. And so when we come back after the break, obviously we have to talk about the famous United.
After all, haven't navigators, geographers, and map makers mapped these areas? And shouldn't they have noticed this quirk by now, if the Earth is indeed flat? Well, the reality is, the rabbit hole just gets deeper from here. So, to begin, the distance between Sydney, Australia and Nelson, New Zealand, on the ball Earth, given their coordinates and sparing you the spherical trigonometry, should be 1,310 miles. But the Australian Handbook, Almanac Shippers and Importers Directory states the measured distance as being 1,550 miles, which is a full 18% longer. And while on the ball Earth model, Antarctica is said to be a continent of ice situated at the bottom of the ball from 78 degrees south latitude, it should therefore not have a perimeter greater than 12,000 miles. However, early explorers like Captain Cook and James Clark Ross, in attempting to circumnavigate Antarctica, took 3 to 4 years to do so, and clocked in the distance traveled at 50 to 60,000 miles. That's twice the circumference of the equator. But the real proof for the flat Earth map is in the flight paths. On the ball Earth, several flights would have their shortest, quickest, and straightest path over or around the Antarctic continent. But instead, these flights take all manner of tangential detours, crossing into the northern hemisphere to refuel. Their reason? Antarctica's too cold, they claim. Well, I'm not buying it. When they claim there are bases with working machinery set up all over Antarctica. So let's just take a look at the actual flight paths and see what they have to disclose. One flight that should be a simple 11-hour shot across the Indian Ocean is from Johannesburg, South Africa to Perth, Australia. However, this flight takes a detour north, stopping in either Dubai, Hong Kong, or Malaysia to refuel, for a total flight time averaging over 18 hours. This ridiculously wayward detour is frustrating to say the least, but on the flat Earth map starts to make sense. Another quick and easy flight, you would think, is from Johannesburg to Santiago, Chile. While an easy 12-hour flight below the Tropic of Capricorn is to be expected, instead, every flight crosses the equator to refuel in Senegal, all the way near the Tropic of Cancer, for a total flight time of 19 hours. Though it doesn't make sense on the globe, as you can see it fits perfectly on the flat Earth map. A third flight from Johannesburg is to Sao Paulo, Brazil, which should be a direct 10-hour flight across the 25th degree south latitude. But instead, every flight crosses into the north to stop in London to refuel, making the total flight time 24 hours. From Santiago, Chile to Sydney, Australia, a straight 15-hour flight across the South Pacific is expected, despite refueling options in either New Zealand or any island in the South Pacific. the flight stops all the way at Los Angeles to refuel before continuing south to its destination. As already stated, these detours make no sense on the globe, but are explained and work perfectly well on the flat Earth map, having the North Pole at the center. So investigate the subject for yourself and ask questions.
Howdy, I've been looking at the Lake Pontchartrain Causeway, which is the longest bridge in the world, and it's in Louisiana. 24-mile long bridge. So I wanted to see how they worked out the curvature building this bridge, because in 24 miles they should have to deal with 384 feet of curvature. And I even looked at a documentary from Modern Marvels that 45 minutes long, but they finally got to the point, and it was this. They threw this up as they were going to a commercial, and it was 35 minutes in, so I barely caught it. But this is what they're to compensate for the curvature of the Earth. The Lake Pontchartrain Causeway was built roughly 2 inches longer than the distance it spans. 2 inches for 384 feet. And I thought I'd show you guys how I'm figuring out how much curvature we should be seeing. So in the first mile you get 8 inches of drop. So for the Lake Pontchartrain Causeway, we'll take 24 squared times that 8 inches, and then you can divide it by 12 to get your feet, and that's 384 feet of curvature that they should have to deal with, but they only had to add 2 inches of road for that. So okay, that's been explained. Now back to work. Thanks for tuning in. Map showed the routes to make sense, and the Google Maps didn't. And the way they were trying to hide these ridiculous routes was with fake flights. Fake non-stop flights that aren't real and you can't get. This video will just focus on some of the changes that took place since then. Like Fare Compare had to change their website and their flight search format. That happened like a couple weeks after the video came out. Also, some of the non-stops that they had out there disappeared from the searches as they were trying to figure out what to do, I'm sure. Sometimes they were in the searches, sometimes they weren't. And then also now they've added some new fake flights, so I'll go over those. And yes, even though it was a daily fight with shills and it wasn't fun, I blocked over 100 of them so far. Daily fight for 2 months, still happening, because this is a huge lie, and they're trying to keep this one a secret. And this lie in particular really pissed off a lot of people, including a lot in the airline industry, because this lie is one of the big ones propping up the flat earth lie. And this lie exposes the flat earth a lot faster than people are ready to have it exposed, including a lot of flat earthers. And I'll probably make another video on that another time. Proof. Where is your proof? How many times did I hear that? Proof is in the logic, first of all. If you know the earth is flat like I do, then logically these are not real flights. But I know people need more proof than that, besides the actions that I've seen on this video since then, which also prove it to me. But here's how we get real proof and expose it. Calling out to friends in the southern hemisphere. We need your help. Show up to these airports and look for the gate. of these fake flights, and I bet you won't find one. And if you do find one, I bet there won't be a plane pulling up or any people lining up for it, because they can fake these flights to a certain extent, but they can't fake it that far. So let's expose it. Let's expose fake flights and the flat Earth.
The seatbelt sign is on!
First, please make sure that your seatbelt is securely fastened. Seatbelts can be purchased for $5. To fasten, insert the metal fitting into the buckle and tighten the buckle by pulling the loose end away from you. To release, purchase a release flap for $7. Now I know what you're thinking. We've never paid for seatbelts before. Once we've reached our cruising altitude, your flight attendant may or may not go down the aisle with snacks. If she chooses to, each passenger will be given a single peanut.
Alright, this is Expedia, and it's a Sydney to Santiago search. And I can show you that every single one of these options on this page, which is 15 or 16, is fake. So we know this one is fake. This one is the non-stop from Sydney to Santiago, Qantas 27. Sometimes it shows up in the search, sometimes it doesn't. This one is fake. It used to only be available 3 days a week. Now it's available, I think, 4 days a week, or so it says, but this one is fake. 12 hours and 40 minutes for that flight. Nope.
You'd think after all these years someone would listen to you.
Oh, well, airport management, the FAA, and the airlines. Oh, cheats and liars. All right, let's get out of here.
The flat Earth is the biggest lie of all time. And they've kept it going for hundreds of years now. And the way they do that is with a lot of supporting lies. And one of the supporting lies has to be fake flights. And I can tell you right now that makes them nervous, because this exposes the flat Earth faster than they know it's about to be exposed. So how far would they go to make you believe that these non-stop flights are actually real? Well, this is how far they'll go.
It was a colourful start for QF Flight 28 to Santiago, with Chilean dancers performing their national dance at Sydney Airport, giving passengers on the plane an exciting send-off for the 13-hour non-stop journey to this new Qantas destination. And guess who was there to meet them on arrival?
Good morning.
Yes, none other than John Travolta, the airline's ambassador at large in his pilot's uniform. Even workers on the ramp strained to get a look at the famous actor, who later spoke at a packed media conference.
The two wonderful countries being able to come together with one flight, a non-stop flight from Sydney to Santiago. Simple trip.
Do you see a plane out there, do you? Huh? We are not going anywhere until there is a plane out there.
So, that one is fake, and every single other one of these ones is fake also.
Surely you can't be serious.
I am serious. And don't call me Shirley.
No matter what the first part does, because all these flights eventually take off from Auckland and go to Santiago, and that we've already shown is a fake flight.
Do you see a plane out there, do you? Huh? We are not going anywhere until there is a plane out there.
You can't do it. So, all you really need to see, this is that 11-hour, 20-minute flight for 6,000 miles, supposedly. But not on the flat Earth map. All you need to know is that this is the same flight that's going to Auckland, 4:15 to 12:35, and you can see that all of these flights end at 12:35. no matter what the stops. This one goes through Brisbane first, so is this one. Melbourne first. So those parts can be real. I'm saying the Auckland to Santiago portion is not real. You can see they're all... So all of these flights right here on this page are fake. So whatever happens, I'm sure you try to book one and it says, oh jeepers, nothing's available. Here's your next option to either Vancouver, San Francisco, or LA.
It's an entirely different kind of flying, altogether.
It's an entirely different kind of flying.
Here's Flight 800. This is the one that I'm talking about, the Auckland, 6,000 miles, Auckland to Santiago. Supposedly leaving every single day. Now there's another flight. Flight 1316 wasn't in the first video. Now it's a new flight supposedly. But I'll show you, they just copied this flight. So it's just another fake flight. You can look here. 4:15 departure time every single day of the week. So they both leave at the exact same time. Except for this one. This one gets there in 10 hours and 15 minutes, and this one gets there in 11 hours and 20 minutes.
Surely you can't be serious.
I am serious. And don't call me Shirley.
So, yeah, this one, same jet, same seats, all that stuff. So, now they're just getting sloppy. So now there's two fake ones, and you can see that Flight 27 didn't come up. We can close these up and I'll show you that there's no non-stop in this. So interesting. And here's your dead giveaway. The Auckland flights, these are the two fakes, 800 and 1316, 7,337 miles. Your next options, double. And it goes all the way to 15.7. So you're either flying, there's one flight that takes you to San Francisco, then Houston, and then to Santiago. There's two different flights to LA that either take you to Atlanta or Houston, and then Santiago. And then there is, one flight to Vancouver, and then you have a couple of different options, but
I can't take much more of this. Looks like I picked the wrong week to quit amphetamines.
Shayna, they bought their tickets. They knew what they were getting into.
The last time the flight is delayed.
Alright, here we are, Johannesburg to Perth. And I've opened up all the real flights. But we'll go over the fake ones. This one is real to Singapore. And here's the flat earth map that I used to map out the Johannesburg to Perth flights. And this flight right here from Johannesburg to Singapore to Perth, almost a straight line, and it's 7,800 miles. So that's where I'm getting that 5161 cannot be a real flight. Also, all these Sydney flights are fake. They disappeared from the search altogether the other day, but they're back today. It's almost a straight shot on the flat earth map from Johannesburg to Singapore to Perth. And this is 7,803 miles. So it's close to 8,000 miles, not 5,161. So this flight right here, 280, South African Airlines, is a fake. And that was in the first video.
Do you see a plane out there? Do you? Huh? We are not going anywhere until there is a plane out there.
You'll see a lot of these QF64, Qantas 64. All of those are fake. Those are all to Sydney. The first flight is to Sydney, 6:10 p.m. You'll see all of them are leaving at this time. So whatever the rest of the flight is doesn't matter, because the first flight part is fake. So this is a fake listing.
Chicken or fish? Chicken or fish?
You see they're listing it at even the one stop 88.82, which is only 1 mile less than the 2 stop. Amazing. But yeah, this flight to Dubai, real, and that is 9,597 miles. Johannesburg, Dubai, Perth. And this one is to Abu Dhabi International, and this one's real too. But all the QF64s are fake, because this first part of the flight, Qantas 64, 6,847 miles. It's a lot longer than that. And all the Sydney flights weren't even on the search the other day, about 2 or 3 days ago. Today they are. So, yep, there you have it. And you can see I'm not using any dates in this search, so that way it pulls up everything. And I'll show you. I've got everything checked over here, so any flight, any stop. These are all the different airports. Alright, well, thanks for tuning in, and cheers to all the new subscribers. Welcome aboard. I kind of took a break there for a while. Chalked that up to partially summer finally hitting where I live, and also being a little overwhelmed by one video I made in particular. And now I must be a glutton for punishment making another. But along those lines, I'm not going to argue about anything really. You can do your own research to find out about the flat earth. There's a lot of great videos out there made by other folks, and that's how I learned about it, partially. So yeah, do your own research. And it's not that I'm trying to avoid questions, it's just that I'm trying to avoid the people that are trying to throw me off track. I'd be glad to help people that are genuinely trying to learn about the flat earth. But I'm not going to argue on this video. So that said, we need folks in these key cities: Sydney, Santiago, Auckland, Johannesburg, Buenos Aires, Perth. And also remember that these aren't the only fake flights. There's, you know, all the return flights, for instance. So team up, take your video camera to the airport, and let's expose this lie, which will expose the flat earth a lot faster. Cheers, everyone.
Now I know that some of you are still concerned about getting there safely. Enjoy your flight.
Ladies and gentlemen, it's me, the World Traveler, from the comment section. I can assure you that I have taken every single one of these flights that he says are fake, and they are indeed real flights. I'm sorry you're flying double miles, you just happen to not get one of them.
But Dane, you're here to shatter illusions and to provide information. We really cannot sing the praises of your knowledge enough. So let's get right into it. You just go ahead and take us wherever you think we need to go.
This is what we have. We have a power structure, a cancer that's so extensive and so permeated with so many willing participants, and that's the key point. Those few at the top that really know what's going on, that are pulling all the strings, could not do this without the full cooperation of everyone down the ladder. And people who are literally, at this point, responsible for stripping the future from their own children. And we see a lot of political theater, Doug and Joe, don't we, about how much these politicians claim to care about newborns or unborns. But and I'm not saying they shouldn't care, they should. But do they really care when they are part of the systematic poisoning of all life on Earth, including those newborns, that they are participating in the cover-up of this toxic metal that's raining down on all of us? And we see the stats medically. We see it. I mean, we have autism has, again, statistically, from 1975 to 2014, the increase was over 10,000%. And now we have statistics from MIT stating it's going to be 1 in 2 in 10 years. We don't have 10 years, by the way. In regards to our biosphere and the state of the biosphere and the species extinction rate and the demise that we are seeing right now, the equation is so nonlinear. It's so extreme and so exponential. If we do not change course immediately, mathematically speaking, it's going to be game over very, very soon. Short-term human extinction. I fully accept that certain things are not necessarily directly in our control, and I don't live in fear at all. But I simply want to be found at my post doing what I'm supposed to be doing, whatever happens. But the Chinook salmon are collapsing in the Alaskan waters. You have 80% salmon collapse in the Columbia River and the tributaries. We have Mongolia has lost 80% of their food crops. China's about 25 to 30%. I mean, these are big headlines. What's going to feed the Mongolian people? And while we're watching Donald Trump and his theater and the rest of the theater and the political circus, if you will, all hell's breaking loose around the planet. And people truly need to stand back, assess the situation, shatter the delusion of normalcy bias, if you will. And I know you guys know what normalcy bias is. A lot of, perhaps some of the listeners don't know exactly what that means, but I hope people look it up. It's simply that when you've never experienced certain threats, you're sometimes not likely to accept them or even see them. And I know you guys know what the term is, but we have a society that's absolutely epidemic with normalcy bias because the stores are open, the stock market's going up completely artificially, but they just can't get their arms around the fact that the biosphere is imploding by the day. Well, the fish diets have certainly been occurring all over the globe, but the salmon collapse is relatively recent at this scale. Warming of the waters, the Eastern Pacific.
Yes.
But it's becoming like bathwater, the theater that goes on to try to distract people from the fact that their biosphere is literally imploding. It's truly astounding. There's no connection to reality whatsoever. We have the thermal energy buildup, and right now, again, the heating of the planet is occurring at the approximate rate, mathematically, of 4 Hiroshima bombs per second, 400,000 a day. It's hard to get your arms around a planet that's heating at that rate. I'm not asking anyone to believe me. Again, I stress this with any dissemination I give, I stress, please don't believe me. Please investigate exactly what I say. Go to a search engine and search exactly what I just said. 4 Hiroshima bombs a second heating the planet. You'll find multitudes of articles covering that exact study. Thermal energy buildup in the oceans is the bottom line with the equation, because as I state often to try to make people understand the difference between the heat buildup in a cubic meter of seawater as compared to a cubic meter of air. A cubic meter of seawater contains 4,000 times more thermal energy than air. So as the climate engineers, and for your listeners, most of them probably know what this is, but again, they attempt to manipulate Earth's climate systems. All the major powers are involved. They're all colluding. The various major aspects of this manipulation involve saturating the atmosphere with electrically conductive, light-scattering particulates. Heavy metals and other elements are part of spray mix So we have light reflection, light refraction, which is a stated goal of solar radiation management. One of the terms is used for geoengineering. But we also have the ability for the climate engineers to manipulate these particulates when they're exposed to radio frequency signals. And you've looked up on occasion, I'm sure on many occasions, and seen the rippled, perfectly uniform rippled effect in the clouds. And sometimes if you look at the right time, you'll see this rippled effect heading different directions, which is absolutely impossible meteorologically if you did not have a radio frequency involved. Have you ever seen that in the skies where you have this rippled effect even going opposing directions, and the radio frequency exposure is such that they repel each other? It tends to scatter them out. It tends to scatter rainfall in the same manner. If you have too many condensation nuclei, too many small particles, as rain is moving across California, this is typically what happens to us here. If they do allow moisture to move across us, it's heavily aerosolized, so it's heavily sprayed. And then with this radio frequency exposure, they can scatter those particulates, so it just distributes what would have been rain in certain locations into the widest possible uniform, featureless-looking sky imaginable, but no rain comes out. It stays dry. So you guys perhaps have seen some of these featureless skies. We've grown so used to, Doug and Joe, that we don't even recognize what a real cloud looks like anymore. If people would simply, again, stop dichotomously thinking, because a lot of people, even in the anti-climate engineering movement, want to believe that the only source of damage to the planet is climate engineering, and that's simply not true. Hold to that kind of conclusion, we create a big rift between the anti-climate engineering community and the climate science community. We need that rift to go away. We need to unite the tribes. Well, the climate science community, which is horrifically in denial about this issue. And there's reasons for that. A lot of climate scientists are dying. Have you guys taken note of that? You have really the frontline Arctic ice scientist, Peter Wedhams, that recently stated on the record he had concerns and suspicions about 3 of his colleagues that had recently died very anomalous, unfortunate deaths, climate scientists, all of them. And he was so beaten up for the statement that he later retracted it. But this is a man that's not prone to making such statements at all. And the fact that he said it should carry a lot of weight. And also we have other scientists from Greenland recently, that's the type of scientist that might be considered the type of person who would speak out. Died spectacularly. I think that was in January, February of this year in a very anomalous plane crash, the kind of thing you see in movies, of course. They're trying desperately to hide what's going on around the globe. And there's no question that more and more of these climate scientists understand the stakes, understand that their jobs, their careers don't mean anything, that if they don't deal with this issue, nothing else will matter. So we can speculate as to all these deaths, but if people search this out, in fact, here's a headline right now from one publication. Cambridge professor Peter Wedhams insists 3 scientists have been assassinated. That's a pretty strong headline, isn't it?
Yeah, I would say.
Going back over the last several years, there's been a dozen, maybe a dozen and a half. There's quite a few. Here's another headline. UK climate scientist, this is from the International Business Times, big publication. UK climate scientist Peter Wedhams feared assassination by death squad. Here we have, if we connect these dots, it's a little easier to see. And a lot of people have been trained to believe that the power structure, the media, is trying to convince them it's warming because they want carbon credits and, sham things like that, which at one time was true to a degree. They were really pushing the carbon credits, and of course that's just one more form of manipulation over the population. As time has progressed, as the gravity, the severity of what we face has magnified exponentially now, this is woven into the threats for the climate scientists right now. Now the power structure and the media they control are trying desperately not to convince the public it's warming to the degree it is. Yes, they talk about it. Can't not talk about it when we had temperatures in Iraq, I believe 6-7 days ago. We had a heat index of 165 degrees. So not an actual temperature. That's about 125 degrees with 50% humidity, but that heat index is still off the scale, and people can't survive at that index. So anyway, as conditions have gotten that severe, so they have to talk about global warming to a degree, but they are absolutely doing their best, especially in the case of the U.S. population, in the eastern half of the U.S., to convince that part of the population, which is the majority of the U.S. population, it's where a lot of the politics occur, that warming is not occurring. So what do we see when we look at GISS maps, global maps of deviation from normal temperature around the whole globe for the last 2 years? The only blue spot on an otherwise red planet, red meaning above normal temperatures, is the eastern half of the U.S. lower 48. The focus of geoengineered storms and jet stream manipulation again and again and again and again. And mathematically speaking, meteorologically speaking, you could not have such a scenario naturally. You couldn't have. You guys remember during the winter we heard over and over, Boston snow, Boston snow, Boston snow.
Yeah.
Do you guys remember that? Oh, so I'm just pointing out that that's what we were shown, or we got shown the Buffalo snow too, and they trained snow into the tiny little sliver of land. Well, this is we watched it on radar. We could see them training and ice nucleating the flow of moisture they had across those lakes just to get those headlines in that one spot. And that impresses people. When they see all that snow, they don't care if it's one block of Buffalo. They just see the snow. They hate Al Gore. We all hate Al Gore. He's easy to hate. He's part of the power structure. But if we look at the events that they focused on, Boston snow, Buffalo snow, that when they engineer a cool-down event, and that's a shallow layer of cold on the surface, it comes from heavy ice nucleation. We have frequent flyers that note temperature rises of 20 degrees 1,000 feet off the deck. So they create these engineered events, and that creates the illusion of more cold than warm. And again, I'm weaving this back into climate engineering because here's the point to all of this. While they were showing the Boston snow, the cold readings here and there, they weren't talking about the fact that we were 90 degrees all through the west in the middle of winter, no snow, 14,000 feet up in the Sierras, nothing. Mount Shasta, 14,000 feet high. There was nothing on it for much of the winter. They don't talk about any of that. So they create this perception of the climate system by engineering a cool down in what amounts to 1/2 of 1% of the Earth's surface area. The eastern half of the U.S. lower 48 is about 1/2 of 1%, or 1/200th of the Earth's surface area. That's not much. The climate engineering, why would they do this? Because climate engineering has helped to contribute to this planetary meltdown. It's not mitigation. It's not helping. Climate engineering can only be considered weather warfare. There's nothing benevolent in climate engineering. It's about power and control, period. As they've done more and more damage, as they've toxified the planet, every life form on the planet, as the damage has mounted, they keep doubling down again and again and again. They just ramp the programs up more and more. And now they're trying as hard as they can to hide the fact these programs have helped to push us to the point where the planet's in total meltdown. I'm not saying it's the only cause, but I'm saying people need to consider climate engineering itself has contributed radically to disintegrating climate system. Science makes clear, the laws of physics makes clear, if you put particles in the atmosphere, you will destroy the ozone layer. You can't not destroy it. So while they're blaming it on spray cans, on CFCs, mathematically, most massive cause of ozone destruction by far is climate engineering. So back to the UV, that UV being as intense as it is, directly related to climate engineering. Now more thermal energy is penetrating because of climate engineering. So when I said they double down, that's exactly what they do. The more damage they do, weather warfare they've already been carrying out, the more they ramp the programs up to try to hide that damage, doing yet more damage. Again, it's imperative that we consider all the sources of damage to the climate. The climate science community is afraid to even go near the subject of geoengineering. Supported by the data, climate engineering is not the only cause of meltdown. Again, if you cutting down the forests, putting 4 billion gallons of hydrocarbon in the atmosphere a day, which is about 100 million tons, paving the planet. I mean, certainly I don't think anyone of us could argue that that has to have an effect, and it does have an effect. But that being said, let's look at the fires. You guys see the fires burning everywhere, right? So if we look at how the chain reaction goes from the fires, let's tie that completely into climate engineering. You can't have less moisture in the atmosphere on a warming planet unless you have a factor that's not being acknowledged, and that factor is climate engineering. So these particulates, they radically disrupt the evaporation and the hydrological cycle. I would encourage your listeners to search for a film called Dimming the Sun by Nova. Shockingly good film, and certainly those filmmakers knew this was going on, although they couldn't admit to it. But to the forest fires, so you have a planet that should be experiencing more rain as the planet tries to respond to the warming and the damage done. It tries to cool itself. But now we have less rain globally. This is a direct result of climate engineering. But isn't it astounding to live in a society where something this big could be going on, and at this critical hour, and we are indeed at a critical hour that most don't yet realize the gravity of and the immediacy of. But climate engineering, this is where the paradox really sinks in. I mean, not only do we have these climate mitigation programs as if it's for the common good, destroying the ozone layer, disrupting the hydrological cycle completely, contaminating the entire planet in every breath we take. Also, with renewable energy, decimating. These programs are decimating. They diminish wind, sun, and rain, all three the primary sources of renewable energy. long story short, again, the effort being made to hide these programs, to give the public anything that would help or would cause them to not believe this is going on, massive effort, ongoing effort to hide this. That's what happens.
Yeah.
It's happened over and over and over. I had a scientist contact me from Duke University, a lab manager, a lab that was funded by Monsanto. And, of course, we have the foxes running the hen house across the board. She livid about the climate engineering issue. After being taken to the room, she said, in other words, for a second time, and told, you touch this issue again, there'll be consequences. That's the last I've heard of her. I'm not sure if anything ever happened to her. She may have just decided that it was time to shut up. I'm betting on it. We are not just expendable to them, but now we are a rapidly increasing liability. And just as Mr. Brzezinski said, it is much easier for them to, with the technology available now, to cull than to do anything else. But I need to make this point clear. These programs are not just about eugenics, not at all. They're very complex. Weather warfare is a huge part of it. Part of it is they're simply trying to save their own skin, but making it worse in the process. They're rolling the dice. They're doubling down again and again and again. Multiple layers to the onion, multiple agendas. If you can't hide climate engineering, you're going to have a global population that's going to go ballistic because of people like Kissinger. And one more quote from Kissinger, by the way, and I'll leave with that. And this is also part of climate engineering, and this is where it's very complex. They're controlling the food supplies. They're controlling the energy flows back to the hydropower, the wind power, the solar power. They're controlling all that to some degree with climate engineering, as I mentioned. So here's a direct quote from Kissinger. He who controls the food supply controls the people. He who controls the energy can control whole continents. He who controls the money can control the world. Henry Kissinger, 1973. Can there be any doubt that that's going on right now? I mean, can there be any doubt whatsoever? They have mandatory vaccines happening in California. And I mean, we're in a literal right now, right here fight for life. And I know people that are still going golfing, going on a cruise.
You said, we've got at the outside maybe 10 years, okay? What do we do? I mean, I know that we have to expose and intervene, but how do we, given that short period of time, we got to get on our posts like right now, man, and we got to start sounding the alarm bells. But
we have, again, those people who have been trained, who have been told that it's normal. You see nothing in your sky one day and horizon to horizon trails the next day. The greatest gift we have is our sense of reason, and we should use that and not turn it off. And the human race has largely turned it off, especially the U.S. population. It's not normal with similar atmospheric conditions to have such anomalies. This is absolutely positively spraying being done, period. You have a system that's like a cancer, an unimaginably huge cancer. And Doug and Joe, does a cancer intend to kill its host? I would argue no. A cancer simply intends to proliferate. This is no different. We have people that are so invested in this juggernaut of insanity that they won't stop. They will not stop until, now we get to the next question, what do we do? Until enough people treat this issue with the priority that it deserves, as if their head's on fire, to help us get this issue to the light of day. If we do that, military personnel, and there's a lot of great people in the military, good people that are waking up to the lie, are waking up to the fact that they've been used to a degree that can scarcely be imagined by those in power. And this is easy to verify. I mean, from the experiments being done on our own soldiers, nuclear fallout they've been exposed to depleted uranium ammunition. We had 200,000 Iraqi vets from the first Iraq War with Gulf War syndrome, being exposed to depleted uranium. And it doesn't take much to talk about supporting the troops. It takes a little more to actually support them. We need, back to how do we fix this? How do we expose climate engineering, which is the greatest single leap we could take in the right direction? If we don't stop it, it's game over, period. The planet can't respond. The planet is trying to swim in a straitjacket. Can you swim in a straitjacket with your ankles tied and you can't swim? You drown. The planet can't respond to the damage done. It can't. It's encased in a cocoon of toxic metal particulates. If climate engineering continues, mathematically speaking, we have no chance. Even on the near-term horizon, no chance. And the current die-off should be proof enough of that. If we could get this to the light of day, if enough of our military brothers and sisters could be made to realize what they're a part of, what they're being made to do, has nothing to do with freedom, democracy, preservation of the country, has only to do with a power structure that now is trying to deal with a population that it knows not just expendable, but a liability to. If a population wakes up, it's a liability. And to back that up, let me give you a quote from former U.S. National Security Advisor Brzezinski. This is a direct quote from Mr. Brzezinski. Major world powers, new and old, also face a novel reality. While the lethality of their military might be greater than ever, their capacity to impose control over the politically awakened masses of the world is at historic lows. To put it bluntly, in earlier times it was easier to control 1 million people than to physically kill 1 million people. Today, again, this is a direct quote, it is infinitely easier to kill 1 million people than to control 1 million people. We are all being slow killed right now. These particles will kill us. They are killing us. And the demise comes quicker at the end. As your body starts to break down, it happens much more rapidly. That's a mathematical, scientific, lab-proven fact, absolute fact. If we bring this to light, I believe enough of our military brothers and sisters will refuse to cooperate.